Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when heaven seems to lean a little closer, when an unexpected encounter becomes a doorway to grace, and an ordinary act of kindness sets in motion a miracle no one could have predicted. Tonight I want to take you to one such moment, where a weary single father, carrying the weight of unpaid bills, long shifts, and unanswered prayers, made a choice that would change everything. Not because he had much to give, but because he could not ignore someone in need. Picture him on a cold, gray evening, hands rough from work, heart tired from struggle, when he notices a stranded woman on the side of the road. He doesn't know her name. He doesn't know her story. He doesn't know that his own future is quietly intertwined with her. All he knows is that she needs help, and he has just enough strength left to offer it. With no expectation of reward, no thought of recognition, he steps out in faith, and what he doesn't realize, what he cannot realize, is that this woman is not simply a traveler in trouble. She is the judge who will soon hold his fate in her hands. A judge who will remember not his failures, not his hardships, but his compassion. A judge who will be moved not by legal arguments, but by the simple goodness of a man who chose kindness over convenience. This is a story about how God weaves redemption into the ordinary threads of everyday life. It's a reminder that the smallest acts of love often carry the greatest weight in heaven. That when we serve others, even in our own season of struggle, miracles have room to unfold. And that sometimes the answer to our deepest prayers comes disguised as a stranger stranded on the side of the road. Compassion in hardship can open doors only God could prepare. Because compassion is more than a feeling, it is a choice made in the thick of adversity, when giving seems least convenient and kindness feels costly. When a person extends compassion while carrying the weight of their own burdens, something sacred happens. It is in those moments that faith stretches, character deepens, and unseen doors quietly begin to shift on their hinges. Hardship often tempts the heart towards self-protection, but compassion asks us to look beyond our own needs and notice the needs of another. This act, especially in seasons of lack, becomes a declaration of trust that God sees, that God provides, and that God can multiply whatever little strength we have left. Compassion offered from abundance is admirable, but compassion offered from scarcity carries a unique spiritual power. It becomes a seed planted in soil watered by tears, and heaven never overlooks such seeds. When a person chooses compassion while navigating their own storms, it reveals something essential about their heart. It shows that they have not allowed difficulty to harden them or make them cynical. Instead, they hold on to the belief that goodness still matters, and that their actions still carry purpose. This kind of compassion is not naive, it's courageous. It says, even though I'm struggling, I still believe someone else's need matters. And every time that belief is lived out in action, something shifts in the spiritual landscape around them. It aligns them with God's heart, because God himself is compassionate even toward those who can offer him nothing in return. When we mirror this kind of love, we position ourselves near the pathways where God's blessings flow. Hardship has a way of narrowing one's world. Bills stack up, responsibilities multiply, fatigue settles in. The temptation is to focus solely on survival. Yet some of the most profound stories of divine intervention emerge from people who chose to look outward even while life pressed in on them. Their strength was not in their circumstances, but in their willingness to let compassion guide them. When someone helps another person in the middle of their own struggle, it is not just an act of charity, it is an act of faith. It speaks a quiet message to heaven. I believe that taking care of someone else will not rob me of what I need. I trust that God is watching over me while I am watching over another, and that faith does not go unnoticed. Throughout Scripture and throughout everyday life, there is a consistent pattern. People who pour out compassion, even when running on empty, often find themselves surprised by doors they never expected to open. These doors may come as opportunities, provision, favor, restored relationships, unexpected breakthroughs, or moments of mercy at a time they desperately need it. The reason is not transactional. Compassion is not a bargain with. Rather, compassion shapes the heart into something God can use, bless, and breathe upon. It prepares a person to walk through the doors God has crafted specifically for their journey. Hardship does not disqualify them. In many cases, it is the very setting where their deepest transformation takes place. In life, some doors are visible, like job opportunities, financial help, or new beginnings. But some of the most powerful doors are invisible at first. They open through the quiet shifts inside the heart. New resilience, new hope, new clarity, new connections, new direction, new favor in unexpected places. Compassion can soften hearts that were once closed. It can heal relationships thought impossible to mend. It can move the right people into place at precisely the right time. And sometimes, compassion shown to a stranger becomes a key that unlocks blessings too, tailored to be coincident. Even when help seems small, even when it seems unnoticed, compassion plants seeds that grow into outcomes far beyond the moment. It may be a simple gesture, a ride offered, a meal shared, a listening ear, a moment of patience, a word of encouragement. But what seems small to us may be monumental to someone else. And God often uses these simple acts to orchestrate a chain of events that lead to something greater. Compassion in hardship becomes a doorway not because the act itself is grand, but because the heart behind it is aligned with heaven's purposes. Often we are unaware of how closely our breakthrough is tied to our willingness to be a blessing. The single father who chooses to stop and help despite being worn down by life demonstrates a faith that does not depend on comfort. He shows that compassion can rise above circumstance. He doesn't know who is watching, or how his moment of kindness will echo beyond that. He simply does what is right because it is in him to care. That authenticity, the kind born from struggle and humility, often speaks louder than words. It has a way of touching others on a deeper level, stirring their own compassion, resetting their perceptions, or shifting their decisions. God can take a moment like that, a moment born of genuine empathy, and turn it into a catalyst for transformation. Every act of compassion given during hardship becomes a reminder that darkness cannot snuff out light unless we let it. It shows that hardship does not define the limits of one's generosity. It also shows that compassion can thrive even in the most difficult season. When someone is hurting yet chooses to help another hurting soul, they create a divine intersection, one where God's grace is free to move in unexpected ways. These intersections become the very places where destiny turns. And often when a door swings open later in their life, they can trace it back to that moment of compassion, a moment when they had every reason to look away, but chose instead to love. Compassion in hardship also builds spiritual authority. People who have loved through pain carry a depth and authenticity that cannot be manufactured. They understand struggle intimately, and their kindness carries weight because it is offered through sacrifice. This kind of compassion is powerful because it comes not from excess, but from endurance. It carries a testimony within it, a testimony of perseverance, humility, and faith. It is also worth noting that compassion does more than open external doors. It opens internal doors as well. It makes room for healing, releases bitterness, softens frustration, and brings peace to places where fear and stress once lived. Every act of kindness becomes an act of resistance against despair. It shifts focus from what is lacking to what can be given. It reminds the giver that they are not powerless, that even in their difficulty they can make a difference. And that awareness becomes a source of strength, something that often sustains them through challenges that might otherwise break them. Compassion given during hardship reflects the heart of God more clearly than compassion given in comfort. It mirrors divine love, the kind that pours itself out regardless of circumstances. And when a person aligns their heart with God's, they naturally step into places where His blessings dwell. The doors that open may appear sudden, surprising, or beyond anything they could have planned, yet they fit perfectly because they were prepared by a God who honors the quiet faith behind every sacrificial act of kindness. When someone chooses compassion in hardship, they step into a rhythm where heaven can work through them and for them. They may not see the immediate outcome, they may not understand the significance in the moment, but compassion sown in difficult seasons carries a promise. God sees, God knows, and God responds in ways that far exceed what the giver could have imagined. A simple act of kindness can redirect the course of a life, because kindness, especially the kind offered without expectation, has a way of touching places in the human heart that logic and persuasion cannot reach. It slips past defenses, softens burdens, and awakens hope in ways that often seem small in the moment, but prove monumental in hindsight. When one person chooses to act with compassion, even in an ordinary or inconvenient moment, that choice becomes a spark. It may appear insignificant at first, like a single candle flickering in a dark room, but the light it produces can ripple outward, illuminating paths that had once been hidden. Kindness alters not only the person who receives it, but also the person who gives it, creating shifts in attitude, perception, and direction long after the moment has passed. A simple act of kindness carries power because it interrupts the expected rhythm of life. People anticipate criticism, indifference, or hurried excuses, but kindness catches them off guard. It feels rare enough to stand out and genuine enough to linger. When a person is struggling, battling unseen battles, or standing at a crossroads, a small gesture can become the turning point that reminds them they are not invisible, not forgotten, not alone. It becomes a gentle push toward possibility, reminding them that goodness still exists in the world, and that their story is not finished. Many breakthroughs in life begin not with grand gestures, but with one moment in which someone is reminded of their worth. In stories of transformation, both spiritual and personal, it is often a small kindness that triggers change. A smile shared at the right moment, a stranger stopping to help, a meal offered, a word of encouragement, a ride given when someone is stranded. These actions may take only seconds, yet they can alter the trajectory of a day, a decision, or even a future. A person who receives kindness when they are vulnerable carries that memory with them. It influences their choices, reshapes their beliefs about others, and sometimes becomes the quiet strength they draw upon when they must make difficult decisions of their own. Kindness is powerful because it changes atmosphere. It soothes tension. It builds bridges where there were once walls. It opens doors in hearts that have long been shut. It creates a sense of safety in places where fear or uncertainty once lived. Even when the giver does not know the full story of the one they are helping, the kindness offered can plant hope in soil that had been dry for years. It can help someone breathe easier, think clearer, or take steps they were afraid to take. Lives are shaped in part by circumstances, but they are also shaped by the moments that remind us that humanity still holds light, no matter how dark the world feels. A simple act of kindness can redirect a life because kindness is a carrier of influence. Influence does not always shout. Often it whispers. It touches the human spirit with a gentle force that shifts perspective. The single father who offers help to a stranded woman feels he has done nothing extraordinary, yet his decision, his willingness to stop when others drove by, sets into motion a chain of events he could never have orchestrated. He doesn't know that his kindness will be remembered, weighed, and considered in a future moment of judgment. He doesn't know that his compassion will speak for him louder than any argument or defense ever could. What he sees as a simple gesture becomes a testimony of his character, one that reaches into places he never expected it to go. This is the nature of kindness. It travels. It moves beyond the moment of action. It enters rooms, conversations, and decisions long after the giver has forgotten. It speaks on their behalf when they are not present. It influences people who were touched by it, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Kindness carries a resonance that echoes, sometimes quietly, sometimes powerfully, but always meaningful. It has the capacity to shape future opportunities, because it leaves an imprint on those who experience it. People remember how they were treated, especially when kindness came during a moment of need. Kindness also redirects life by shifting identity. When someone chooses kindness in a moment when they could have chosen convenience or indifference, they reinforce a truth within themselves, that they are someone who does good, someone who cares, someone who acts with integrity even without reward. This strengthens confidence, builds character, and shapes habits. It becomes part of who they are, and who a person becomes internally determines much of what they will experience externally. A life marked by small, consistent acts of kindness creates opportunities for trust, connection, and favor. Others sense it. Doors open because character stands behind them. Moreover, kindness has a divine element woven into it. When someone acts with kindness, even in a simple way, they align themselves with the values that heaven honors: mercy, humility, generosity, compassion. These qualities draw divine attention because they reflect God's own heart. A small act of kindness can therefore become the seed through which God brings blessing, restoration, or unexpected breakthroughs. The act itself may seem insignificant, but the spiritual impact is anything. God often works through small moments, turning them into transformative encounters that shape destiny. Kindness also has a way of softening the hearts of those who hold power, influence, or authority. A judge, a leader, an employer, a stranger with the ability to affect another's future, each is still a human being, shaped by experiences, emotions, and impressions. Professional titles may define roles, but kindness reaches the person behind the title. It reminds them that compassion matters. It touches them in ways that rules, paperwork, or arguments cannot. When they witness or receive kindness, especially from someone who has little to gain, it influences how they see that individual. It moves them toward empathy. It encourages fairness. It invites growth. This is why a small act can redirect a life, because it shifts both the giver and the receiver. It places them both in a moment where humanity meets divine purpose. It creates a bridge between two stories, two paths, two destinies. And when that connection is touched by compassion, the outcome often unfolds in ways no one could have predicted. Kindness also redirects life by breaking cycles. Pain produces isolation, but kindness creates connection. Fear produces hesitation, but kindness fosters courage. Shame produces silence, but kindness invites openness. When someone offers help to another person, especially a stranger, they interrupt the pattern that struggle often creates. They break through the walls of discouragement or hopelessness. They reintroduce the possibility of good. This shift can change how the other person thinks, what they expect, and even how they respond to others in the future. A simple act of kindness can also redirect a life by changing the giver's path. Acts of kindness expand vision, stretch capacity, and open eyes to needs previously overlooked. They deepen empathy, strengthening the emotional and spiritual muscles that prepare a person for greater responsibilities or opportunities. Many who serve others, even in small ways, find later that they have stepped into roles, relationships, or blessings made possible by that same spirit of generosity. Kindness often sets the stage for divine appointments, moments when the right people meet at the right time for the right purpose. These encounters may appear accidental, but they often begin with a simple choice to care. Kindness has a remarkable way of amplifying itself through time. A person touched by kindness may pass it on, creating a ripple effect that travels through families, communities, and even generations. One act becomes the inspiration for another, multiplying influence in ways the original giver may never see. This ripple may be subtle or dramatic, but it always moves outward, never remaining static. A single act can birth a legacy of compassion. A simple act of kindness can redirect a life, because it awakens dormant hope. It reminds people that there is still goodness in the world, still possibility, still reason to keep going. Hope is a powerful force, and kindness is often the key that unlocks it. When someone is wrestling with hardships, discouragement, or fear, kindness becomes a lifeline. It stabilizes their spirit, grounds them in grace, and gives them the courage to take the next step. And sometimes that next step leads them to opportunities they would have otherwise missed. Kindness does not need to be extravagant to be life-changing. Its strength lies in its sincerity. When given freely without calculation, it touches the core of humanity. It leaves a mark. It gives people a glimpse of what love looks like in action. And when love becomes visible, lives are inevitably redirected towards something greater, something higher, something filled with possibility. And in the quiet power of kindness, destinies are rewritten long before anyone realizes a miracle has begun.